Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence, and today I want to talk a little bit about an existential crisis, right, that I've been sort of having lately, right. It's quite difficult to actually figure out because, you know, you spend so long just sitting there, going through all the reasons you feel like this, coming to the same conclusion again and again, and yet still forgetting the lessons that you learned from all of that sort of pondering, right. I was sat there lying in bed yesterday, right, and I could feel the existential crisis has been coming every day for the past, couple of weeks. I could feel it coming, and I sat and thought to myself, I have sat and done this every day for the past 2 weeks, and this sort of thing has happened most of my adult life, right? Existential crisis, where I'm sort of figuring out whether I'm a real person in the real world, and then getting into the entire, every issue that there is of the world and politics and society and all that kind of stuff. It all kind of comes in at once and it's very overwhelming, right? And I sat there and I thought, I've done this. I do this every bastarding fucking day, right? Just worrying about the same old stuff and trying to figure out a way through the mist, right? And I come to the same conclusions every time, and I wake up and I learn nothing from it, right? So why should I keep doing this? Why should I keep bothering to sit and ponder this stuff? Why not just let it wash through, right? Let the existential crisis wash through me, right? Don't bother doing anything about it and see what happens. So I did that, right? And I sat there and I tried not to, figure out anything, right? I let the negative emotions come, and it's not even necessarily about not allowing them to be in there, right? There's all sorts of stuff going on. Let's take, the problems of the world and society, for instance. Those buildings in the background look a wreck. There's loads of issues with that. Why can't we have nicer architecture, right? Say that's one of the parts of the existential crisis. It is actually one of the parts of the existential crisis, because then that leads in turn to other problems with the developed and developing world, and how are we going to get to our overall utopia? And then when you get to that, then you start to think about the philosophies of various different people, and how it turns out that the idea of living a fulfilling and contented life where happiness is easy to come by, but at the same time remains fulfilling and not like an artificial thing, that turns out to not be the overall dream of everybody. Some people actively want a world with some level of suffering, and I mean a proper level of proper suffering, not just sort of enough of it so that you can have a nice balance, that sort of thing of getting in after a long day of work. You can't have that if you just walk out the door and then immediately come back in, right? You need to have gone and put yourself in an uncomfortable situation so that whole existential crisis from just that one thing leads me down all of those different avenues, right? And I was thinking, I don't need to do this, because I'm going to wake up and nothing is going to change, right? I've figured out so much, time and time and time again, and yet nothing does anything. So why don't I just leave it? Just let it do what it does. Just let the negative thoughts be, and that's going to be fine. Almost like a state of meditation, but without so much actively trying to let them wash through me, but as more sort of just not sitting and pondering and trying to connect the dots and trying to figure out what it's all about, because that's what it always seems to come down to, is trying to figure out what it's all about. And there's no point in doing that, because you're just going to keep getting yourself down again and again and again and again, right? So I think the reason that I've been having these existential crises is because I did a video about it, the idea of not feeling like a real person. And a lot of that comes down to comparing yourself to others, right? And I know that they say not to, right? But when you are convinced that other people are sort of inherently better than you for whatever reason, and it's not a logical reason, it's very difficult to not compare yourself to others. And I don't just mean oh, so-and-so has more followers on me than on Instagram, or looks like they have a more interesting life on Instagram. I mean sort of from the perspective of actively hearing about people's lives, or seeing what people are able to do and are capable of doing, right? And the way that, you see various friends and stuff from your high school go off and develop big careers and get married and have kids and stuff, right? And I haven't done any of that. I mean, I've been married, but it's not exactly a happy sort of thing. It was, a terrible mistake. So you got that, right? I did a video about this just now, actually, where it's sort of Your past will make up who you are, but who you are will make up your future, right? So you don't have to be an amalgamation of your past experiences. You can think about it in a different way. You can become something else, right? I like to think of my brain and my personality like a CD player, and I can eject the CD, right, and I can put a new CD in. So I can take out Oasis and put in Metallica. I can take Metallica out and put in the Foo Fighters, right? I don't really like any of these bands, so I don't know why I'm using them as examples. But you do that, right? And you kind of come to the conclusion that everything is going to work itself out in some way. Everything will work itself out, but you're just in the turbulent present. But eventually you will get to a stable future. And what does stability look like? Because it looks different to different people, I think. You know, I think the general idea of wanting a couple kids and a house that you own and, you know, a car that, you know, works and, you know, that you own as well, that's all well and good. But it's like, if I had all that right now, I don't know if I'd like be comfortable with it. I feel like there's stuff that I need to do to get into that position, right? It's life that I need to live, because like I'm only sort of 25, right? So I need to do certain things, and I don't know what those certain things are, right? Because I don't want to necessarily, I'm not saying I want to be like everybody else and live the exact same story as everybody else, right? Where, you know, you spend your 20s going wild, doing crazy stuff, and then you get into your 30s and then you sort of settle down, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just sort of saying that there's a checklist in my brain. And I think thinking of it like a checklist is part of the problem, is that trying to turn emotions into logistics is the fatal flaw of mental health. Because your mind isn't rational. It's not something that is 2 + 2 = 4. It's not a mathematical equation to figure out. Instead, it's a painting to interpret. It's something that you look at and you decipher what the meaning is for you and for what it means to you, rather than some objective truth. Because otherwise, everybody would live the exact same kind of life and we would all live like fucking bees or something, you know, living in a big hive mind. If that was the best, most fulfilling way for our, you know, personalities to flourish, that's what we would do. But we're not. We're clearly individualistic. And that kind of means that we all have our own little stories that take us different places. Me, for instance, with this getting married thing that I mentioned, I got married at the age of 21, and it was really fucking stupid, right? But that is my little story that brings me to where I am now, right? And other people don't have that story. Other people have different stories. Some people might have, you know, instead of having one big marriage, they might have had a lot of like little, you know, girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever along the way that take them to the person that they are now. And that person that they are now, as far as they're concerned, is their final form, right? Until they develop the next, right? And eventually you get to the end of whatever chapter it is of your life that you're trying to work out. You eventually get to some kind of checkpoint where you can then reset everything, right? I think that because I was looking back at some of my old, you know, journals and like old videos, archive footage of me from like, you know, 8-9 years ago, and I was looking at it and thinking, I seem to have so much figured out at that point. And I don't just mean from a, you know, an idiotic teenager who thinks they've got it all worked out sort of way. I just mean in the sense like lessons that I'm trying to learn now, I seem to already have figured out at the time. And it's not like I unlearned them. It's just that I think the skill level that I required for myself went up, right? And because that happened, I've then, you know, I might be better than I was at that point, but it feels like I'm not because the standards are higher. Does that make some kind of sense? I hope it does. I know this is quite a vague, rambly, kind of nonsensical video that hopefully makes some level of sense and doesn't make me look like a literal crazy person. But, you know, you get yourself down in the dumps, right, about various different things. And for me, it comes down to overthinking and existentialism and trying to figure out where I am in the, because like, you look at all of this, right? I mean, the sky, you can see the sky, right? Do you know how big that fucking blue is? Do you know how big that is? It goes all the way back there. And then this is just one little sphere, this little area here. There's millions of them across the entire planet. And then there's more planets out there, and there's all the space between the planets, and all the stars, and the nebulae, and the galaxies, and the pulsars, and the quasars, and all that kind of stuff that all make up this universe. And we don't even know if this is the only universe. There might be multiverses. And then what are the multiverses within? Is it just turtles all the way down? It might be. And if it is, what is the end state? You know, are we really the biggest thing that's around? Because there's, you know, infinity either way, so no matter where you are on a point of infinity. Or is there an objective beginning and end to the scale of the universe? And you try and figure that out, and there's no answer that I can come up with. I'm not a fucking scientist. I don't know. I don't know what to even begin to think of that. I mean, I understand that, you know, atoms are made of subatomic particles, and atoms make up, say, DNA, for instance, which makes up the cells in our body, which then make up, you know, us, right? And there's various different cells and various different organs and all that sort of stuff that will make up who you are, and that we're not really like a conscious mind necessarily. We think we are, we perceive ourselves to be, but really what we are is, you know, a bag of organs and essentially a machine that is designed to do what it does. Almost like a fucking AI in a way. We're like ChatGPT in that sort of sense, in that we've got this mechanism and this algorithm of our brain, how our conscious mind works, right? That sure, it doesn't work on code, it works on some kind of conscience that we don't quite understand, that science hasn't figured out. I mean, the brain is one of the most nebulous things as far as science is concerned. I mean, we're still trying to figure out how it works. And, you know, it's in all of us. We all have a brain, right? And we still haven't figured it out. It's the same way that, like, we know more about the moon than the bottom of the ocean, even though the moon's way further away. We're trying to figure out who we are, what we are, why we are, how we can get to the position that we want to be in, and how we can fix this world. What do we want for the world? What do we want for society in the future? How far into the future can we make this last? And eventually the entire universe is going to end in heat death or the big freeze or whichever theory you subscribe to. And that kind of gets you down as well, because what's all of this for? You know, in 300 years, no one's going to remember this YouTube channel, no one's going to remember me, no one's going to remember my family, no one's going to remember anyone that I've ever met, no one's ever going to remember, you know, anything of real worth around here, right? And in 1,000 years, 5,000 years, London will just be a fucking, like, chapter in a book that someone wrote, the same way that ancient Rome is just a few chapters in a book to people reading it now, right? There's so many peasants that knocked about in the Roman era who were incredibly interesting and did so much and loved and cared for their children, right? But they just got forgotten to time, right? And we're going to be very likely similar to that, but in a different way, because we've archived so much of the world around us onto the internet, right? That it's just going to be such an overload. It's not like anyone in 5,000 years is going to look through the Johnny Mozzer YouTube channel and go, oh, he did a video on existential crises, right? Oh, I'm going to watch that. No one's going to care probably in like 50 years from now, but certainly not in 1,000 years from now, certainly not in 5,000 years from now. So that's what I mean by the existential crisis, right? And the easiest answer I've found to shutting that out is to say that none of it matters. None of it matters, and you don't have to think about this stuff. It can be there, sure, but what, you're going to defeat existentialism? Are you going to defeat the passage of time? Are you going to defeat the fact that generations will be lost to history? No. So just accept who you are and try and live as fulfilling a life as possible for yourself and for those that are in your immediate surroundings, and try and make the world around you a better place, not just for you, but for the people that are important to you, not for generations, millions of years down the line who don't give a fuck about you. So I hope that makes some level of sense. I hope you don't think that I'm a full-on mental patient or anything like that. Even though, to be fair, this video did start off with, oh, my mind's just so weird, I'm sick of the existential crisis. You know, but at the same time, it's not like it's not true, what I just said there, you know. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching this video, everybody. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that, you know, I'm not alone in this sort of way of thinking, and that if we can sort of find a community of people like-minded, that we can maybe get ourselves through this together. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care, and bye-bye.